Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mac Stuff Live. My name is Martin Crowson. I'm joined today, as always, by the Managing Director of Mac Stuff, Anthony McCormack. Hi, Ant.
Hi, good afternoon, Martin. Good to see you, and thanks for joining us all online on YouTube, etc. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks very much, folks. And that's a good point to start with as well. If you are joining us for the first time on our YouTube channel here, please hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell right next to it. That way you'll be able to find out whenever we're doing our very next live broadcast and keep up to date with all the stuff that we're doing here on Mac Stuff.
Yes, please.
So let's get cracking. We've done 4 or 5 of these before, Anthony, and they're all focusing on ways and means to go about getting a new job. But something that's not often spoken about is the title of today's Mac Stuff Live, and that's rising above rejection. So I guess where is a good place to start when dealing with the not so good side of a personal job search?
Yeah, it goes with the territory, doesn't it? And not very much spoken about. It's a kind of people talk about job search as being like soul destroying and things like that. It's like it's harsh words, isn't it? Or exhausting. And you've got to be able to kind of put your armor on and get out there every day. So a good place to start. It's a Stephen Covey thing, isn't it? Again, begin with the end in mind, I reckon. And that's, being the right job search, with the right objectives for the right reasons, and hopefully a good, healthy level of motivation. And you're going to be able to do it. You're going to be able to take the knocks and the setbacks and keep your eyes on the prize, which is, potentially a big upside of, better position, closer, more enjoyable, more money, whatever it is that's in line with your objectives.
Why is it so difficult for us to deal with that? Because we all go into job searches, and we're all hoping for the best when we start these things, and we know the trials and tribulations that our mates have been through. We've all been through them before ourselves. Yet a rejection always seems to hit really hard and really hurts the core. So why is that, as humans, for us so tough to deal with?
Yeah, we've got a good kind of fear of failure, haven't we? And nobody likes rejection. It's can make a lot of self-doubt and things like that. And I think that's genuinely why it is difficult, and it's difficult for people to keep showing up day after day in a job search, until they get the result. So it's almost like a serenity prayer type thing, isn't it? Made famous from like the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program, and that's give me the courage to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I can't, and the kind of wisdom to know the difference. So it is what it is. You're bound to pick up some no's during the course of the job search, and you've got to find a way of kind of accepting that and moving on. Basically, a nice kind of attitude to carry with you is the kind of I never lose, I either win or learn as well though. So sometimes you out and out score, don't you, and win, or sometimes you learn, and that in a sense is a win in itself as well. I've got I'm on my kind of subject in a way, which is kind of making it more kind of a big deal for me to do this one, really, because as you all know, running your own business and in recruitment especially as well, there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of fear of failure, and I need to keep my kind of motivation up and things like that. So I might end up touching on like a stack of books that I've got with some of my favorite gurus.
Slight bit of reading there.
Because I suppose it's a fair criticism that I probably mentioned one book more than anything else on these, like slightly self-serving, but I have got some of the suggestions today.
How do they help you then? And the books you there, let's just touch on that briefly. They're a big part of what you do, big part of your life, reading and learning.
Yeah.
So help you. How does that help?
Yeah, so I've committed to lifelong learning, and that's just it's tough to want to be the best or whatever, but to be better every day, your kind of competition is yourself sort of thing. I think that's kind of really helpful mindset. Like Tony Robbins, probably, he's super famous, isn't he, from the forget what his big conferences are called now, but I'm sure somebody will comment and tell me. These go back kind of 20 years, and they're classics, but he points out that kind of motivation is there's a two-part thing. Basically, you're either it's pleasure and pain. So people seek to avoid pain and obviously get pleasure. So that means that quite often somebody's like either towards or away motivated. So you're either motivated to move away from the pain or more motivated towards, to move towards the pleasure. And I suppose in the job search context, it's you've got to have the potential pain of the interview and the process and the rejection, like a relatively small thing, and then really build up the pleasure side of the more money and more respect, the more opportunity of the new position.
It's quite a strange process, really, isn't it? Because as you get older, you get cynical, more and more cynical. So you tend to dampen your enthusiasm for some things, but at the same time, you do have to be enthusiastic, and you really have to show you want a job to be able to get a job. So I guess it's about the fine blend of being enthusiastic and putting yourself out there, but guarding against that sense of rejection and knowing the odds are literally stacked against you, I guess, for most jobs. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so it's all about, and I say in our interview preparation sessions, be confident, be enthusiastic, be specific. But you said about the numbers, and there's tactics in there as well, isn't there? This is like almost like a two-part thing about the rejection. Like, one is to avoid too much rejection by applying to the right things and doing a great job with the the CV, cover letter, interview. And the other part of it is, sure, there's going to be knocks and rejections, and how can I move past that? So in terms of the tactics of it, you're going to want to kind of stretch yourself if that's what you're minded to do, and go for things that are interesting and challenging and all the rest of it, but kind of not go too far because you're just increasing or decreasing, I should say, the odds of success. And you can keep a monitor of your ratios and things like that. Like if I'm applying to 50 things, am I getting 10 invites to interview or something like that? Obviously that's a 1 in 5. Like if you start to get to 1 in 20 or something like that, you might be applying to the wrong positions or in the wrong way.
Yeah, and that's something else I was just going to ask now. Why is choosing the right job to actually apply for so important in this process?
Well, again, it's a really personal thing. I suppose it depends on your own objectives, and don't necessarily follow the crowd. And it's perfectly okay that maybe money isn't your top priority and things like that. I do encourage people, like if money genuine is your top priority, then go for it and kind of really suck it up doing something that you hate for a few years, and that's valid. But if you're not against the wall financially, then do something that interests you. That's following your passion, isn't it? And then virtuous circle, that's going to come across in the way that you interview, and you're more likely to score the position. But I suppose we might come on to this, but it's the person who's doing the interviews, they're not like an all-seeing eye on this. They're not making a perfect decision, and they're certainly not making the decision from a perfect process. Like interviews, they're only marginally better than just picking from CVs, like as to who's going to perform best in the job. Like it's an act at the end of the day, isn't it? As to who's going to be the best for the role. Like it might be that they're flat out wrong, or there's things going on behind the scenes that you don't know about in terms of why you didn't get the role. There might be somebody internally that was earmarked and was always going to get it, or they might have chosen not to hire actually at all. They might think genuinely that you're too good for the position, and that's not a win-win either. Like it might be that kind of they win because you're brilliant, but you don't win because it's not challenging enough or interesting enough for you, and then you leave in 6 months. And if their priority was to get somebody in for stability and tenure, then they were right not to hire you, even if you're the best person on the shortlist.
Yeah, there can be lots of things working against you don't really know about, can't there? And you just touched on another one there, and as well the internal candidate that you know nothing about. And we've all know friends who've applied for jobs that they think are an absolute dead cert. Their job history matches the spec to a T. It's local. They know somebody there. They think they're going to get it, and all of a sudden they don't even get a second interview. So is that something becoming more and more prevalent these days? Is there any way you can guard against it? Because in theory, you could have 4 of those on the trot.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of parts to that you just said as well. Actually, I suppose it's more disappointing the higher expectation you have and the more likely that you think you're going to get it. You kind of banked on it. You were there almost, and I'd guard against that as well. In that, it's a good analogy to hope for the best but prepare for the worst, and even kind of rehearse what it's going to be like if you don't get it. It's like you've got to be okay in yourself and self-confidence and prepared to move on either way, whether you get the job or not, haven't you? I've been trying to explain this like in a family context about driving tests, but I won't go into that one. And what we remind me of the question again. Oh, internal candidates, wasn't it?
I suppose it's just another thing to bear in mind when you're trying to deal with the fact that you've not got a job. In some instances, is literally out of your hands if there's somebody in there who they've already given the nod to, but they're just going through a process that they have to go through to tick the right boxes.
Yeah. For that. And potentially, like, you stood no chance. I guess, fortunately, I don't think it is getting more popular or more prevalent. I think that's kind of historically a public sector thing, whereas they have a defined process that they have to follow. Like most private sector companies, they will just unashamedly hire the best person that they want from wherever they want, like whenever they want, and within the parameters of obviously discrimination in employment law, that's totally fine. So it's very rare that there's a whole charade going on, whereas they're doing a recruitment process whereas somebody else is pretty much guaranteed the job, and that it works two ways as well. Like the internal candidate in one scenario is much less likely to win the job, because if they were so good, they'd have already been promoted into the job in the first place. Surely they wouldn't bother doing the external recruitment process. So they can't be that good or that much of a shoo-in, because they are interested in meeting other candidates, including obviously yourself in this context. So that's a counter to what you've said, but there is still that situation, whereas they might be going through the motions and for internal perception before hiring their favorite internal person or promoting them, they want to do a process and make sure that it looks fair and equal and whatever. And I guess that potentially happens, but not very often, and certainly not as often as people will say as a let themselves off excuse for not getting the job. Like
I've also known positions as well, Anthony, where they go through a process with a very strong internal candidate in place and in mind, and one of the people that turns up for an interview is just so good at everything they do that they would get that job over the internal candidate anyway. So it's never a lost cause, is it?
No, definitely. And I'm glad you said that, because that's the mentality that you out there as the job seeker, with an opportunity to interview, need to keep in mind. So if you go in there and just steal the show and smash it, like, it's game over, isn't it? Like, whatever the internal candidate has to say, and you might end up managing that person, which is then the next problem. But,
that's another chat another day. What about time? Let's move on to some feedback. We're all hoping for some sort of feedback if we don't get a job. Sometimes you don't get any at all, and it's very frustrating. Sometimes that feedback is very vanilla and just almost a cut and paste job. Yeah. Should you ever write back in that situation on an email and just thank them for the feedback or thank them for the time? Could that stand you in good stead later, or is it just not worth doing it?
Yeah, I think so. It's better to not burn any bridges, and people sometimes remember what somebody said or did, but they'll always remember how they made them feel. Like, is something that I've kind of kept in mind. And if you feel like a positive person who left a good impression, then that can pay dividends in the future. So I'd always thank somebody for their time and the appointment, and let them know that you're interested in the job after the interview. But then also, if you get and unsuccessful, and I think you said, like, through gritted teeth, then thank them for that as well. They don't have to give the feedback, so consider it a gift that you can kind of use or not, and plug it into that win, learn, change process. And if there's things that you can learn from it, then obviously do so, but don't. I think where people struggle more is, like, don't over reflect, like, or beat yourself up about it. It might have been just a tough call, or just personal preference at the end of the day. It's not a perfect process. It's like the individual making the decision isn't making a perfect decision with a perfect process with perfect knowledge and things like that on one end of the spectrum, but neither is it necessarily suspicious or arbitrary or discrimination either.
Yeah.
Just preference, isn't it? An old colleague of mine gave an analogy on this, and he seemed to get away with it, so I'll risk it as well. Why not? He said, if I'm looking to go dating, and there's a blonde and a brunette and a redhead, and I think, do you know what, I'm going to go with the blonde this time. It's like, is it discrimination against the redhead, or was I wrong not to go with the kind of brunette sort of thing? And it's just personal preference really, and people are making quite often a chemistry based a decision they can't quite put their kind of finger on as to why, they just do. Yeah. And if you're wondering which one, obviously, that I went for, it was all of them. I was at college.
Now that is definitely another chat for another day. So moving swiftly on, if you get a stream of jobs that go wrong, or you don't get 3 or 4 on the trot, I know it's probably the last thing you want to actually think about, but is there any argument for coming home, making some notes about the process itself to help you look back on it and learn from those mistakes? I mean, your initial reaction is to chuck your coat in the wardrobe and go and sulk for a bit, but is there any argument for that?
Yeah, and obviously, feel free to kind of sulk. It sometimes helps to get it out there, but then just move on, isn't it? There's definitely an argument to do that, because that's like continuous improvement, isn't it? It's almost like kind of manufacturing type good process of root cause analysis. See if there's some things you can tweak. So in theory, yes, but it's one of those and no, because quite often it's not that helpful. It's not necessarily kind of real or valid, or specific feedback. And, you don't want to dwell on the past and the rejection and the negativity. You more want to, again, focus forwards on the end goal, and better luck next time, sort of thing. And I'm glad that we went into kind of some of the deeper things of pulling the motivation out to kind of fight another day, because it is a truism, but it's a little trite that it's if at first you don't succeed, try again type thing. Like people give the analogy that a toddler falls over 100 times when they're trying to learn to walk, but never do they think, oh yeah, this walking thing, that's not for me, I'm gonna knock it on the head, do they? So we've got to, like you say, keep that kind of childlike enthusiasm with it, really.
Yeah, we'll just say at this point, if you're enjoying today's broadcast and haven't subscribed to the Mac Staff YouTube channel yet, just hit that subscribe button just below the video there and hit the notification bell to find out when we're back online next. We'll just carry on. Last few questions, and for now, I've known also people who are extremely hard on themselves. We touched on this earlier, and go into some sort of mind warp for days about why they didn't get a job they feel they should have got. What negative effects can that have on people if they're a very, very harsh judge of themselves in normal life, go for a job they think they should get, don't get it, and then spend days wondering about why they should have? So tell us about how to guard against it.
People do put themselves in a bit of a spin. And it's not just because of the fear of failure or the kind of trauma of the interview itself necessarily, and it's not even the rejection itself, which can be just vanilla. It's like a yes no thing. It's partly about the feedback, which might be, oh, you're too expressive, or you're too shy, or something like that. It's not even that either. It's the stories that we tell ourselves about the rejection and what it means, and then it mental mushrooms into kind of something else entirely. So if we're taking a valid, unfortunately you came second type thing feedback and making it into like, I wasn't good enough, like I'm not likable, I'm never going to get another position, I'm on the shelf career wise or whatever, it's only downhill from here. And before you know it, you've told yourself like a devastating story, which is totally kind of knock your confidence, and it's not like true. Let's pull some examples from here. Like there's a lot of talk about like depression and anxiety, isn't there? And depression's like mostly like past oriented emotion apparently, and so like an antidote to that would be something like Ant Middleton's zero negativity. He's like, there's no room for any negativity, like it's like a cancer. It'll stop you from moving forward. So that's the one side. And the depression side, of the anxiety side, like, is more future oriented. And I found a really helpful book, this Ant Middleton, The Fear Bubble. And if you're anxious normally on future events, and in this context, obviously, you're probably more worried about future interviews than the ones you've already messed up in the past. This fear bubble that he talks about, it's like you don't need to be worried like right now about the interview next week and experiencing the emotions and wearing yourself out with the adrenaline and things like that. You step into that fear bubble like just before, like, and you might do some like power posing and whatever to get yourself in the right frame of mind. There's a TED talk on that, isn't there? But you step into it, get the job done, and step out of it. And that's what he used to do, obviously, as a a special boat service guy before he like kicked the door down to the terrorists. So like his stuff. And this The Happiness Trap that I've just read as well, that's like about acceptance and commitment therapy. So pointing out, amongst loads of other things, obviously, that we are not our thoughts. Like, negative thoughts can come along, but it's just like, you almost thank them and wave them away. If you kind of struggle with them, it's like wrestling the pig in the mud, isn't it? Or the kind of struggling in quicksand. You'll make it kind of worse for yourself, so that you just notice the negative stories, the I'm not good enough, or the I'm never going to get another job sort of thing, and think, that's interesting, but it's not true. It's just thoughts. And again, move past it and get stuck into your next job application, and good luck with it, basically.
Okay. There's always a level of disappointment for anybody when they're trying to get a new job if they get rejected. But what about if you're having a long-term spell of unemployment as well? Because not only is it then a case of I fancy a new job, or I'd quite like to change degree, it's I've absolutely got to get a job to pay my mortgage and put food on the table for my family. So any tips for people that are going through a lengthy spell of unemployment?
So yeah, a few things actually as well, and just to recognize how tough it is again, and like take my hats off to people who are tackling that week in, week out, especially as we've gone through the pandemic and whatnot. It might be a good tactic to go for positions that you definitely can get, even if it's a stopgap. I think that looks good on a CV, and it's new experiences for you, and it's obviously paying the bills and things like that. Like the amount of people in recruitment who were immediately laid off as soon as all the jobs disappeared, that were kind of driving for Tesco's or whatever, and a lot of them have kind of enjoyed it and picked up a load of new skills from it. So that's one thing. To get a coach, and quite often there's free kind of coaching type services available for longer term unemployed, and they can again kind of just give you good pointers, like be it on CVs or cover letters, interview advice, things like that. There's charities that kind of provide kind of new suits and dry cleaning services and things like that to kind of really kind of make the best impression and things like that. So yeah, a few different things. You sometimes have to reflect, don't you, and tackle a problem in a different way. So that might be a new job or a new industry, and things like that. Retraining, definitely recommend all that. And if people are just not necessarily for the kind of unemployed, but if people hate interviewing, we've talked about the rising above rejection, but you can go around it as well, can't you? Kind of try and avoid rejection altogether by perhaps doing applying for things like informally, going through personal recommendation, trying to get in with a company that way from your network, or if you register with agencies and get temporary assignments, there's a really good chance that they can go permanent as well. And again, it's not all on the the pressure of the interview and being the gladiator in that kind of interview arena. It can be terrifying.
Absolutely. So in conclusion, I mean, we're saying take stock, breathe deeply. It's not life and death. Be a bit kind on yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. The sun will still kind of rise tomorrow. feel free to, do a bit of self-analysis to improve your performance. Everybody wants to do that, don't they? Like, right through to top level athletes, but don't dwell on the negatives. Like, keep positive, keep proactive, and you will get the right result in the end. It's as I say, it's tough to beat somebody who refuses to give up, isn't it?
Absolutely. The stuff we've spoken about today, Anthony, is all in the book you've written. We just brought it out very briefly earlier. Tell us a little bit more about Job Done.
It was just for me about putting good advice from 20 years in recruitment all in one place. So this is your kind of one-stop shop success manual, if you like, called Job Search Job Done on Amazon. I think it's like £8 or something like that, and good investment. I think huge upside in terms of improving those ratios and getting the right job at the right salary.
Okay, fantastic. That's all for today, folks. Anthony, thank you so much.
Out of time.
20 years worth of experience on job rejection in 25 minutes. So did a great job there. Thanks very much. Hopefully everyone watching enjoyed that. A reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're doing these live broadcasts every couple of weeks. Each broadcast will be full with tips on how to not only avoid rejections from jobs, but how to get jobs and the best way to go about it. You can find out more on our website, which is www.macstaff.co.uk. Follow us on social media. That's LinkedIn, Twitter and Facebook. And if you have any questions that you'd like Anthony to get back to you with, please pop them down in the comments below. We'll endeavour to answer those as soon as we can. But for the time being, thank you so much for joining us today here on Macstaff Live. Anthony, once again, thank you very much. Have a good day.
My pleasure. Happy job hunting, people, and see you next time.
Great stuff. Thanks again for watching. All the best. Bye-bye.